Welcome to People First by All Voices. I'm your host, Jeffrey Fermin. You know the spiel here. We talk to some of the best and brightest in the HR world. And today I'm joined by the illustrious, the amazing, I know, busted out a big SAT word for you.
The
I'm
best
joined,
and brightest and illustrious? Let's go. What a great intro.
by the way, last conversation we had, it was a while ago, it was like maybe 2 months ago. I said that you were one of the few HR folks out there that had swag. I don't even know if that's a cool kid thing to say anymore.
I take it as a huge compliment. And you know, it's so funny. How did I not remember that? Because I saw when you posted that, and thank you for that shout out on LinkedIn the other week. That was so sweet. But I was like, wait, he said that? And how do I not remember that? But absolutely, it's a compliment. I take it as a compliment. I don't know what the kids are. I mean, I should know what the kids are saying because I have an 11 and a 13-year-old. But I also think that their slang doesn't make any sense anyways. So for our people that are going to be listening, we all know what swag is, and I'm so glad that you think I have it.
Definitely. I think you were going to maybe a cheerleading camp or something like that, and that's
Yeah.
what happened. I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna tell my daughters all about this because they don't think they don't think they have a cool mom. Now they need to know that they have a swaggerific
Yes.
mom, something like that."
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, because my daughter thinks I'm so not cool and she gets so embarrassed by me, and it's so annoying because I'm like, I'm actually a great time. And the older girls within the cheer world that, her cheer teams that she cheers with all think I'm so fun. And they're always like inviting me in to like do their dance circles. And then my daughter is like mortified and it's like, it's so embarrassing.
That's typical, right? Like
But yeah.
I'm not a parent. I had a younger sister, big age difference, 14
Yeah.
years, right? So it's like
Yeah.
I saw the whole thing happen where they're just like, "Ew, my mom is doing this," and it's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I don't want them
I
involved."
know.
But then all the kids around them are like, "Oh my god, mom, your mom is awesome."
Exactly, exactly. But you know what? I keep reminding myself that like there is going to be a time when she's older that she's going to appreciate me and appreciate all my swag. And we will have a conversation where she's going to be like, Mom, I totally am so sorry for all those years that I berated you in public.
Show her this video. Show
I'm
her this
going to.
video like 10 years from now.
I'm
It's gonna live
going
on
to.
YouTube forever.
I know.
All right, on to the subject. Oh wait, we didn't even do a proper intro. I'm joined. This is we got into it without doing proper intros. I apologize to the audience. This is the wonderful Sarika Lamont, the VP of People now at Vidyard.
It's actually recently Chief People Officer at
Chief
Vidyard.
P. Oh
Yeah.
my god! I congratulated you
You
on the
did. Yes, you
promotion.
did.
I
Yes.
apologize. Congrats,
Thank you.
and
I appreciate
tell us a
that.
little bit more about what you're doing and what your role consists of over there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that a whole lot has changed from what I was doing in VP, but also that's okay because it means I was like ready, right? I was ready for that move. But yeah, I own all of the people function inside of Vidyard. Vidyard is an AI enabled video based, I would say it's a revenue tool. I wouldn't say that it's like just sales or just marketing. It's sort of like an end to end go to market tool that's used to help sellers sell more efficiently and more effectively and using the power of like video and AI avatars and being able to personalize at scale. It's a pretty exciting time to be here. A lot of like really exciting things happening inside of the product. But of course, and this is like very, apropos to the topic we're going to be talking about with, feedback and engagement survey feedback and how do we respond to that. But we've also had challenging times on that, unlike many tech and SaaS companies over the last couple of years. We have been ripe with feedback but I love it. I do appreciate the feedback. But again, like with AI and automation, I also own the AI and automation company priority. So that's part of my sort of like overall remit, which has been super exciting. But so I think like with all of the AI and automation, hype and craze going on, not just like within our own organization and building that into our product, but also in this transformation inside of the business, I think we were all sort of ripe for a lot of changes and pivots. And I think that is like pretty indicative of like the feedback that we're getting and sort of the pros and cons of like what we're doing well and maybe areas that we need to sort of double down on. So excited to
Oh
talk
yeah,
about that today.
hell yeah, and In the description, we'll obviously link out to your LinkedIn, to Vidyard as well, and also want to give you your props on here and say like Sarika's doing a lot in just the HR realm. She's giving a lot of speeches, a lot of webinars, video interviews. Give her a follow. She's really pushing a people first agenda out there and cares about the future of work. So yeah, before we get into the first topic, do you want to just like give yourself a little pat on the back as I'm giving you some flowers?
Thank you. You're giving me my Friday flowers on Wednesday. Thank you. No,
Starting early.
I do. I appreciate that so much. I love what I do and I love giving back into our community. So that's why I was very excited. I know it took us a while to get on the mic together, but I'm very excited about what you're doing with this podcast, but just in general, what All Voices has been doing for quite some time. So, and I love the team there. So I'm going to give you your flowers right back to you and the whole team there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And yeah, let's get into it. So, I myself come from an employee engagement survey background, founded a company in the space, and I'm still very passionate about finding ways to give employees a voice. With that said, these surveys, they can be a little imperfect and the processes can be a little it's different in every single department. Some tend to react, some are maybe proactive with some of the feedback they get. That said, how do you approach employee feedback in general and just like collecting employee data?
Yeah, it's such a good question. And I'll have to I'll be like super vulnerable and candid like I always am. Like, I've always loved feedback, whether it's about myself, my personal development, my growth and development, or it's feedback in the context of the work that I'm doing. I think it is truly a gift, whether it's personal growth and development or it's about like, hey, what can we improve across the business? But with that said, especially as I like moved into, the realm of like HR people culture, which has not been like my background overall in my career, probably more so in the last 7 or 8 years. I'll also tell you that it's not always easy to hear it. And I have found myself at times, as much as I love it, also get defensive. And so I say that like with full accountability, like it's something that I'm like continuously working on about myself. Especially as when you're in leadership. And, one thing I do pride myself on is like being super transparent, being pretty I'm big on giving context, not just to my team, but like as much context as I can to the businesses that I'm in, because I think that is like so important in building trust and psychological safety. It's important in building connection. It's important in building alignment. And it's like wildly important when you're in a remote first environment, so I've always been big on like, give me feedback, I want to hear this, but also equally like, oh my gosh, this is so hard sometimes to hear because sometimes it's like, you're telling me that my baby is ugly, essentially, right? And I am incredibly passionate about, the organizations that I work in. Like I don't make moves into organizations lightly. And so I get really passionate. But the passion really comes from like I really care. Like I care a lot about the feedback I'm getting. I care a lot about creating an experience for our employees, current employees, you know, potential candidates coming in and even our alumni. Like I care a lot about building an experience that they can be proud of and one that I can be proud to stand behind. And so I, I surface all of that by saying like, it's important. Now we do a lot of different types of gathering of feedback, right? We have, your engagement survey. We do it twice a year. And we've done pulse surveys. Typically the way that we've structured pulse surveys is like, if we see particular trends and like lower scores within our engagement surveys, we generally try, and we know we're putting actions behind them. Like we really try to make sure that we're pulsing those things, but also scores that are high too, like, and we want to maintain. So we try to do a blend of like pulsing, every few weeks once we put actions in place to make sure like, are we trending positively or is there more feedback that we should be hearing to make sure that we're pivoting quickly and not waiting till the next, engagement survey to get that feedback. We also do exit surveys. And we also do stay conversations. We're not always consistent with our stay conversations. We call them coffee and culture because of like, just resources. We're leaning on resources on my team and there's always like so much going on in the business. So I try to like really be mindful of that. But my hope is that, we do those at least a couple of times a year and we get like a good subset of different people across the business. And those are like, face to face with me and an employee or someone on my team with an employee, but I try to get my whole people team involved in it. So everybody sort of gets a sense of like the feedback. And so those are like, and then of course there's like always feedback that I'm getting, ad hoc or in different forums, whether it's from my team in meetings or, I'm always big on like open door policy, come and Slack me anytime you have feedback. And people are definitely really great about that. Or if we're launching something new, I want feedback like real time, like I want to know so we can pivot quickly. So that means we have a ton of information and a ton of data that we then have to sort of surface through. I guess that's how we like, that's a lot of the inputs of like how we get data. I think that was like maybe your initial question. I actually kind of
Yeah.
forgot your initial question now.
No, and no, that's perfect. You brought up a great point toward the end. It was going to be a good follow-up, or I think it was going to be a good follow-up. No, I'm curious to hear when you see these like common threads or like just even minor issues. How do you go around like prioritizing them? You're getting all the feedback. You're maybe seeing consistent like
Yeah.
responses, man, and then you probably see one that's like, sounds very, I won't say alarming, but seems very important. Like, how do you just go around organizing all these different issues and bits of feedback and turning them into action?
Yeah. That's a really great question. And I say this because I'm in the throes of like our last, we just had an engagement survey and we've been, going through our process of like disseminating information to the right parties. We're going to do a full readout of our survey results at our next Tuesdays. We do a bi-weekly like all company Tuesday stand up. And so we'll talk about, what the feedback was, and then we'll talk about like these are the actions. The one thing I have to like consistently say over and over and over again, and this is just like change management 101, is I'm not going to be able to solve for everything. I say I, but I mean like we as the I is the collective we in my organization as leaders and my people team. And really it's everybody's responsibility. This feedback is for everybody. It's not, and I have to remind people like we all have a part to play in the culture that we want to, work and coexist in. It's not just leaders' responsibilities. It's not just the people teams. It's not just your managers. It's all of us. And one caveat I always tell them is like, I hear this every time. Oh, I give feedback and I don't think they don't even pay attention to it. It's like, well, I have to be maniacal about how we prioritize because we have we have lean resources. We have our own sort of like strategy and our roadmap for things that we're going to focus on, things that are happening inside the business that we need to be able to support real time, as well as, the proactive things that we're doing, right? So it's like we're managing a lot of different parts and pieces of like our overall sort of people strategy and our own OKRs that we have for that quarter and the quarters beyond. But we always make sure that if feedback is like it's a big part of what we prioritize and what we think we need to focus on. But it's just that like we're looking for themes, right? I can't just look for like individual comments. And it's like, if it's like a one-off, two-off, it might not be something that we end up prioritizing because more often than not, there's usually like big patterns and themes that come up that we're seeing over and over again, or we're seeing sort of like large swaths of the feedback. And so that's generally where I look for first. Like my team and I were like looking for themes. We're also looking at balancing that with impact versus effort, right? Like which issues, if we address them, will have the biggest positive impact on employee experience or business outcomes. And then we have to weigh that out with like, how much effort is it going to take and where am I resourced? But not even like what my team is resourced against, and their capacity, but like, where is the business and where is the business prioritizing? And will this create a lot of friction in the business in that it'll I say friction, not necessarily always in a bad way, but is it going to take them away from something that might be of higher priority for the business, right? These are all things that I am like balancing and managing. And I don't do this in a vacuum. I do this with my team and I do this with our executive team and our senior leadership team. We also look at like quick wins versus like more systemic issues and systemic fixes, right? So we want to like, if it's something that we see as a theme that maybe a quicker thing that we can address, like, maybe it's like clear communication or changing the way we communicate in the forms that we communicate in, we can provide small perks or different ways we can recognize differently. Like, we're going to do those things, right? Because if there's a trend and it's an easier thing to do, like those things are going to probably be prioritized quicker because they're easier things that we can tackle. And then some of the bigger sort of structural issues, right? Like that, like kind of get back to like workload capacity, manager enablement, maybe compensation training. Like there's all, different sort of topical things might take a little bit longer, but we know we need to address them. We'll tackle those things and we'll talk about that timeline. We'll be very clear on like, hey, these are the quicker things we're going to focus on real time. And these are the things that are going to take a little bit longer, but we're going to deliver them at timeline A, B, and C. We're always we try to be as specific as we can be and always give a timeline on like what they can expect and when. And again, like we are pretty like cognizant on this notion of like, what are the business outcome? Like what are the company priorities? Like what are happening like real time right now? And not everything's going to be able to be solved right away. And how can I always tie back what we're actioning back to the business strategy so that and how do I constantly communicate the actions that we're taking and the progress that we're making, like at least on a monthly basis so that people know that we're listening to them. And I'm pretty big on like, people probably get so annoyed, but I take every opportunity. Like when something gets done, or, even if it's been like 6 months, I'm like, yeah, and then we did this, remember? Because this was based on your feedback. This was feedback you gave me, and you gave to your leaders, and that's why we did it. I'm always trying to remind people wherever I can, and not to be, I'm not doing that to be obnoxious. I'm doing that to be like, for it to be a constant reminder, because it's so easy for all of us to focus on the like, it's like, oh, what have you done for me lately type of thing, right? Like, it's so easy to focus on the things that aren't working and forget and celebrate the things that we did solve for, and the things that are working. So I always try to make sure that I balance that. And I need that for myself, and I need that for my own team, because it can be really hard for the team, especially like, gosh, like we're still getting that piece of feedback. We've worked so hard to improve that. Like, okay, what are we missing, right? And it can be really hard, and it can be at times can be demotivating, demoralizing for my own team, right? And so it's good to balance the things that are going really well with the things that we need to improve upon, and constantly be reminding my own team, like, you're doing great. Like, we're making progress. It's steady. It's like, we got to get 1% better every day. We can't boil the whole ocean overnight. It's going to take time. And that's the same thing that I remind our organization as well.
Yeah. And yeah, when it comes to the communication of like any I'm going to say the word success, right? When it comes to communication of success or these initiatives, or even just the engagement surveys in general, like how do you go about that? Like, what does the whole entire process look like? Do you let employees know beforehand and then just kind of like ease into it? They get the surveys, they complete it, you take action. And then after all said and done, you then kind of say, like, these are the changes we're making. We're going to be monitoring how it's affecting the organization, blah, blah, blah. Just giving you
Yeah.
like my example of how it looks like, but just curious to know what it looks like on your end.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. We're pretty methodical, and like maybe sometimes to a fault, like very like process oriented around this. And I think like some people are like, you need to move faster, but it's like, yes, but like I know for the size of company that we are, we should, let's move scrappy and faster, but hold on, like I need this to go through like a cadence. So we usually will get the feedback. We'll spend, a few days to a week in our team, and, with the chat GPT and even just like AI capabilities embedded into some of the products that we use has been really amazing at like accelerating the ability to like surface insights and trends and feedback a lot quicker than once upon a time, right? So we can do that pretty quickly now. And I use like a host of different types of AI tooling to like to get that feedback and to validate what we're hearing, and using like a whole different subset of information. Like we'll try to like cross tabulate that with feedback we've gotten in other forums to see like where like bigger trends are, like not just in the engagement survey, but maybe in other data points that we have. And so we spend like I said, like a few days to a week. We start to build out like an initial sort of like few slides and like a talk track and takeaways that I start with the executive team first. Hey, here's what we're seeing. Here's what we're hearing. Here are the takeaways. Here's where like, I want you guys to like, and I'll provide that to them ahead of time, a couple days before. We then have like our live executive meeting, and then we'll have like a really good conversation. Like, okay, how'd you feel about this? Like, what was your sort of initial reaction? And then we'll start talking about like, hey, these is like projected, like recommended actions that I see us taking, but like as just like a starting point. From there, we then go down to the senior leadership team, which is a broader group that's, different leaders that run like different functions across like, and sub teams and then we get their feedback. And then we've also disseminated what we also do, because we were using Lattice to do this. We were disseminating the reviews and the comments like straight out of Lattice to the particular leaders, so they have time to sort of like review and read. They always get it ahead of time before we have like a live synchronous conversation. I want them to have time to really process the information, so we're not wasting that time in the room, and we can really focus on their feedback, their reactions, and like, okay, now what are we going to do about it? Let's move to actions and solutions. Once we do that and we're like in alignment as like a broader sort of senior leadership team, the people team sort of comes together, like documents all that, and then we go down to that starts to get shared at like smaller sort of like functional leadership meetings. Like our R&D team and our GTM teams have their own leadership teams, and so they start actioning. So like I focus a lot of our effort on like, okay, what's the broader organizational macro things we're going to focus on, but then there's a whole other layer of like different sub functions and teams might also have an action or two that they focus on, because there's like really specific feedback to those teams or functions that need to be actioned that might not resonate the same from like the broader perspective. So we try to balance the actions on like company level, what like I'm going to lead with my team, et cetera, and other senior leaders. And then what are you going to do at a team level with maybe like your managers? And then we go in. And so that happens over like a 2 to 3, well, it's probably been like 3 weeks. And then what's happening next week is we're going to announce the feedback these to the entire company in our bi-weekly Tuesday stand-up. We're going to spend the time solely on like, okay, here's the feedback, here's what we saw, here's comparison to the last time, here's where we've made notable progress, here's where we have opportunities for improvement. Like, and generally talk about like the trends that we're seeing versus like every minute question and score. But we also have that accessible to them. We'll have like a readout for that as well that they can review asynchronously. But synchronously, we'll kind of read out some of the trends that we're hearing, the positives, and then the opportunities for improvement. And then it's, hey, here are the actions that we're going to take, and here's the timeline for these actions. And what my commitment is, we're going to give you at least a monthly update on like progress against actions like we've done in the past. That will get recorded. That all gets documented and gets put onto our Confluence page. We have a whole engagement survey Confluence page that talks about our process, our timelines, how we do it, why we do it, all the different sources of data that we use, the rules. Like if you have like, I think we had the threshold, either 3 people or 5 people or less on your team, you're not going to have like team specific, because we want to maintain anonymity and make sure we're protecting people and their anonymity and the feedback that they're giving. And then all that gets documented, right? Like I said, and they can see like all past engagement survey results as well. And then we also show like, okay, within, we were using Lattice at the time. We're no longer, we're going to be using a new tool now in the future, but like we can publish our action plan there, and I can also publish like updates against the action that automatically get like pinged to them in their Slack when I make an update. So we're really sort of big about like ongoing, like, okay, we've made progress here, here, and here. So we're really good on like trying to come back to that and reminding people that like we're taking action and here's what we're doing and how.
You need to find a way to like make your system into a template so every HR department can use that. That seems so like methodical and like
Tell my
very.
people, even tell our org that, because sometimes like, we need you to move faster. And I'm like, no, but this is like, we got to be super careful when you're handling feedback from employees, right? Because you don't want to get it wrong. And to that point, like you asked me earlier, how do you handle the feedback? Like, you need a second, because I'm going to be honest with you, we're humans. Our natural inclination is probably to get defensive first, and be like, what? Like, damn it! Like we spent so much time, trying to fix that. And I felt like made really great progress. Like, right. So like as humans, our first instinct is defensiveness, frustration, or just like, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed. And guys, it's normal. I'm going to validate you and tell you, I see you and it's normal, and don't feel bad about it. What I think matters the most is, what do I do with that information? What do we do next? And then how do we communicate and bring people along on the journey, and be reminding people and reminding myself, like, we don't have to fix everything overnight. It's the power really comes from like choosing what we're going to focus on and being very vocal and transparent about why we're focusing on these things, and its connection back to the business and the outcomes for the business and our priorities and why we've set these priorities. And then, hey, for those people that like, you don't see your feedback in these actions, come talk to me. Like, let's have a conversation about that. I'd like to understand, because maybe there's something that I'm missing, or maybe I'm misinterpreting the data, right? Because the engagement survey is only going to tell you so much, and not everybody's going to take the time to give you fulsome comments, right? So there's always an opportunity to kind of dig in some of the comments and do some follow-ups along the way, like pulsing, et cetera, along the way. But there's ways to do that live and synchronously, and there's ways to do that in like anonymous forums. But sometimes I don't want it to be anonymous. I really want to know. So yeah, that's where we're
I'll
at.
do my best to like provide a clip of that so we can get it out there and show it to employees. I feel like employees, as well as even like certain senior level leaders, need to like understand what goes into it, what are some of the outcomes that are going to come out of it, and why some of these surveys are really important. But
Yeah, I can't take all the credit. My team is awesome. We're like lean, mean, people experience, improving machines. Like I couldn't be prouder of them. They really care. They really lean into this. It's like they're so passionate about it, and it's important to them to sort of take the time. And actually, it's something I didn't even really think about, is reminding people like my team needs time to sit on that as well. Like it's not always easy to hear it, so we need a second to process and like really think about what we want to do next. And I think it's important to remind people to give us grace as much as we give you grace as employees as well, and remind everybody we all have a part to play in the culture we want to live in.
one last question before I let you get on out of
Yes.
here. Uh, We've talked a little bit about quantitative data and qualitative data that's collected from this feedback. What's the one thing that just makes you feel happy when you like, let's say numbers start going up, your organization starts running a little bit better? What are some of the compliments that you get from your employees that are just like, holy shit, you guys nailed it on this one. Thank you so much. Like,
Yeah.
is that really worth striving for? And I want your like genuine enthusiasm. I know you're going to give it. That's just like who you are, but just so other people can see the real benefits of having these like surveys.
Yeah. What really makes me proud and like super happy is when you hear from the organization, like especially like ICs, like, hey, thank you for taking the time. We know this is hard. Like validating, like we know this is hard to hear, but like really appreciate you and your team and like all the like incremental progress that you've made. Or hey, recognize we don't always tell you like how much impact you've made or how much impact your team has made, over the last few years, but like it's really been noticeable. It really means a lot. Or like we know that you have our backs. When I recently got promoted, I had a lot of like our employees reach out and just say like, I'm so proud that you're our CPO, or we're so lucky to have someone that like we know truly advocates for our voice and like really takes it to heart and is like just so passionate about it. Like we know that you're actioning it. We know that you're in rooms that we're not in, like really advocating for us as humans. And like there is no greater compliment. And no there's nothing more profound that you can tell me, or really probably any HR executive that gets feedback like that. There is nothing more profound and rewarding than hearing that, even if it's just from one person. Like it literally makes my life. Because it's easy to give the feedback that is like, well, you're not doing this, you're not doing, it's easy to do that. It's not always easy to remember. I truly believe that so many people feel it, but I think it's not always easy to remember, or not everybody is outgoing and as extroverted as I am. And I know that I can be intimidating, even though I'm like, please come and talk to me. And I mean it. I always have to recognize that have all different backgrounds and different styles. But when I do hear it, it is like chef's kiss.
You can't think of a better way of ending this. I wish we could have just cut off at chef's kiss. But that's it. I still might. I might just like cut the video off there.
Do it. Do it.
Sarika, thank you so much for joining us. The work that you're doing is just outstanding. We recognize it over here at AllVoices, as
Thank
well as
you.
like obviously people in the sector. Thank you so much for just taking like 30 minutes to just chill out with me.
Oh my gosh, of course. Thanks for having me. It was worth the wait, Jeff.
All right, now take it easy.
Bye.
Yeah, we could hang